My name is Marianne Carter. I am 66 years old, and apparently to my own children, that makes me invisible. They don't say it out loud, but I can feel it in every glance, every sigh, every moment I'm told to stay quiet. That night, I ironed my blouse twice before leaving, smoothed my hair 3 times, and looked at myself in the mirror with a whisper. Just dinner, Marianne. Just family. You can handle this. The dinner was held at my son Daniel's home in Austin. A big glass and brick house with tall windows and a driveway lined with expensive cars. He and his wife Claire bought it 2 years ago, but only after I co-signed the loan when the bank hesitated. They never bring that up anymore. I drove across town with a blueberry cobbler in the passenger seat. It was Daniel's favorite when he was young. I thought maybe, just maybe, it would soften the mood if things turned sharp. The moment I stepped inside, I knew I was no longer part of the picture. Claire was already in the kitchen, her heels clicking on the polished wood floor like she was hosting a gala, not a family dinner. Daniel poured wine into crystal glasses with the flourish of a man showing off. Their teenage son barely looked up from his phone. The air smelled of roast beef and something else, tension masked under perfume. We gathered around the dining table, 12 of us in total. The same table I bought them last Christmas when they said their old one was too small. I sat down carefully, my cobbler left untouched on the counter. Daniel cleared his throat like he was giving a business presentation. Mom, we've been thinking it's time to simplify things. The way he said it made my stomach drop. Simplify. That always means less of me and more of them. I asked gently, have you spoken to the lawyer about the estate yet? Claire didn't look up from her phone. She smirked, almost to herself, and said, you're just the mother, Marianne. Maybe stay quiet for now. The room went silent. Then Daniel chuckled, as if it were a punchline, and my other son Mark followed with a hollow laugh. My hands trembled beneath the tablecloth, not from weakness, but from the weight of that moment, like grief folding over itself. I looked at each of them, my own flesh and blood, and all I saw were strangers. I placed my fork down, stood up, and said nothing. I would not give them tears or speeches. I walked out, leaving my cobbler behind, and for the first time in years, silence felt more like peace than loneliness. They didn't know it yet, but that night when they told me to stay quiet, they awakened something far louder. I did not sleep that night, not for a single minute. I sat in my recliner, the one with a worn patch on the armrest, where my late brother David used to sit whenever he came by to watch football. He had been more than a brother. After my divorce, he was the one who helped me keep the house, the one who stood beside me in court when my ex tried to take the children away. He was a lawyer, practical and stubborn, but he had a softness that showed only in moments when he thought no one was watching. The words from dinner echoed in my head. You are just the mother. Stay quiet. They landed heavier than any insult I had endured. My children had reduced me to a placeholder in my own life. Sometime around 2 in the morning, I got up because the silence was too thick. I wandered the hallway barefoot, trailing my fingers across the photographs on the wall. Family pictures from birthdays and graduations, each one smiling. Yet now all of them felt like someone else's memories. I stopped at the cabinet in the study. The one David once told me to leave, closed until the time was right. He had called it the no-go drawer, with that half-smile of his. After his sudden passing 3 years earlier, I never opened it. I thought he left me nothing but his memory and a few old suits hanging in the closet. My hands shook as I pulled open the drawer. At first, it was the usual clutter: passports, tax returns, yellowed birth certificates. Then I saw it, a thick white envelope pushed to the back, my name written on it in David's familiar handwriting. Just one word, Marianne. I held it like it might vanish if I blinked. David was never sentimental. He showed love by fixing things, by giving advice no one wanted to hear, but always needed. Yet here was a letter, meant only for me. I tore it open slowly. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper and a stack of documents clipped behind it. The letter read, "If you are reading this, Marianne, then you were pushed too far. I knew it would happen. Your children love what you gave them, but they will never respect you until you hold the reins. So I made sure you have them. Everything tied to the family estate is in your name. House, land, accounts, all legal. They don't know. Don't hesitate. Don't let them shame you into silence. And if they try to strip you of what you built, fight harder than they can imagine. I pressed the paper to my chest and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My brother had seen this coming. He had given me not just protection, but power. For the first time in years, I did not feel small. I felt ready. By sunrise, I was already dressed. I pinned my hair back neatly, applied a thin layer of makeup, and buttoned the navy cardigan David had once said made me look unshakable. I tucked the envelope into my purse like a weapon and sat at the edge of my bed, waiting for the clock to strike 9. At exactly 8:59, I parked outside the office of Harold King. He had been our family's lawyer for over 30 years. He was there when I signed the divorce papers, when David updated his will, even when my youngest daughter needed advice on a rental dispute. He had always been steady, never warm, but steady in the way a mountain doesn't move even when storms do their worst. When I stepped inside, Harold looked startled to see me unannounced. His office smelled of old leather and coffee that had been reheated one too many times. He rose slowly, his silver hair catching the light from the window, and said, "Marianne, you look determined. I need you to see something," I said, pulling the envelope from my purse. For the next 2 hours, we sat at his heavy oak desk, the documents spread between us like a battlefield map. His expression shifted as he read each page. Surprise, then recognition, then something like respect. "Your brother was meticulous," Harold finally said, tapping the notarized seals with a blunt finger. "He restructured everything. The Carter home, the ranch outside San Marcos, the retirement accounts, even the oil cooperative shares, all of it transferred under your authority, effective immediately upon his death. Ironclad." My breath caught. I had expected scraps, maybe a token safety net. Not this, not the entire foundation. "So," I asked carefully, "what does that mean today?" Harold leaned back, folding his hands. "It means as of this very moment, Marianne, you hold full control. They cannot sell, withdraw, or claim anything without your authorization. Legally, you are the sole steward of the Carter estate. Your children," he hesitated, "are beneficiaries, but they have no power, not unless you grant it." I stared at the papers. "John, the words blurring for a moment, as if my brain couldn't catch up. The same people who told me to sit it down and stay quiet had no idea their chairs were already gone. Harold's eye narrowed. "Do you want them to find out through a letter, or do you want them to discover it when the locks change?" I felt something shift deep inside me, heavier than anger, sharper than grief. "Let them feel it," I said quietly. "I want the shock to hit like lightning." Harold gave the faintest smile. "Then I'll make the calls." And just like that, the power they mocked me for never having was mine alone. By mid-afternoon, the storm had begun. It started with a text from Daniel. "Hey Mom, weird question. Do you know why the ranch account is frozen?" I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, Claire's name flashed across my phone. I let it ring until it went silent. Then came another message, this time from my younger son Mark. "Mom, did you change something with the trust? None of our cards are working." I placed the phone face down on the kitchen counter and poured myself a cup of coffee. The steam curled upward, and for the first time in years, I felt no urgency to answer them. They had treated me like silence, so silence was exactly what they got. By 4 o'clock, the family group chat was buzzing with frantic messages, screenshots of declined transactions, angry questions, half-panicked accusations. Did someone hack us? Why can't we access the cabin deed? What happened to Dad's account? I almost laughed. They thought it was a glitch, a system error, a mistake that could be fixed with one phone call. They had no idea the system itself now answered to me. At 5:12 p.m., I knew they would all be gathered again at Daniel's house, trying to strategize. I could picture it, wine glasses refilled, their voices sharp with entitlement. Claire pacing in her gold heels like she was in charge of a boardroom. I slipped the documents into a leather folder, straightened my shoulders, and drove across town. The late sun painted the sky pink and orange, but inside me everything burned cold. When I knocked on Daniel's door, he opened it with that forced smile he always wore when neighbors were watching. "Mom," he said tightly, "we were just talking about some issues. Come in." I stepped inside. The room smelled of overcooked roast and tension. Mark stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Claire leaned against the counter, phone in hand, nails clicking like weapons. I placed the folder on the dining table and opened it slowly, page by page. "You're confused about the accounts," I said calmly. "You should read this." They leaned in, scanning the notarized seals, the signatures, the dates. Daniel laughed at first. "You can't just move money around like this. There's a trust board." "There is no board," I interrupted, my voice sharp enough to cut through the room. "Your uncle dissolved it last year." "You didn't read the fine print." Claire tried to snatch the paper, but I pulled it back. "This isn't a negotiation. It's a notification. As of yesterday, I hold every key, every deed, every account." For the first time in years, the room was silent while I stood in it. I closed the folder, lifted my purse, and said softly, "Next time you want to discuss my future, you'll need an appointment." Then I walked out, leaving them in the house they thought was theirs, but never truly was. 2 days later, Harold called me with a tone that made me sit down before he even said a word. "Marianne," he began, "there's something you need to see." I wouldn't wait on this. An hour later I was in his office again. The same heavy desk, the same blinds, rattling softly in the air conditioning. He slid a folder across the table toward me. The papers inside were a mix of bank statements, loan agreements, and property liens, all bearing one name in bold ink: Daniel Carter. At first, I didn't understand. Numbers, signatures, dates, all a blur. Then Harold tapped the top page. "These loans were seen in using your late brother's assets as collateral, unauthorized, fraudulent. Your son signed as if he still had partnership rights." I froze. "How much?" Harold exhaled slowly. "We're still calculating, but it's easily $500,000, maybe more depending on what he has hidden. The remodel of his kitchen, the new SUV, that Aspen trip last winter, it all lines up." "And the first transaction?" 2 weeks after David's first surgery. My chest tightened, as if someone had wrapped iron band around my ribs. My son, my own flesh and blood, had stolen from me, from his uncle, while we were drowning in hospital visits and medical bills. I traced the signature at the bottom of one document. Daniel's handwriting, careless and bold, like he'd never considered he might be caught. "Betrayal doesn't always come like a scream. Sometimes it comes like ink drying quietly in the dark." "Do you want to press charges?" Harold asked gently, "or let the financial pressure close in first? Either way, you have the authority now." I stared at the stack of papers until the words blurred. I thought of Daniel as a boy, running barefoot through the backyard, his face lit up as he carried fireflies in a jar. Then I thought of the man at the dinner table, smirking as his wife told me to stay quiet. "I'm not pressing charges," I said finally, though my voice shook. "Not yet. Let him sweat. Let him watch the ground sink under his own feet." That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table. Like puzzle pieces, I labeled a new folder in thick black marker: firewood. Notes filled the margins: assets to sell, accounts to freeze, debts to call in. Daniel thought he had inherited a fortune he could burn without consequence. What he never expected was that the matchbook belonged to me. And I was ready to strike. I knew Daniel would not stay quiet. People like him never do. They don't apologize. They scramble. They twist the truth until they almost believe it themselves. But I didn't expect Claire to strike first. 3 mornings after Harold showed me the fraudulent loans, I found an envelope slid under my front door. No return address. My name written in rushed block letters. I thought maybe it was from my granddaughter Lily. She was the only one who still texted me sweet messages late at night. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. Inside was a copy of a psychiatric recommendation form, not signed, but highlighted in red around the words, "Capacity evaluation recommended." I had seen enough of Davidi's legal briefs over the years to recognize a setup. Someone was trying to prove I was mentally unfit to manage finances. It was their new loophole. If they couldn't steal from me directly, they would paint me as incompetent and take everything through the court system. I drove straight to Harold's office, the paper trembling in my hand. He scanned it, his jaw tightening. "They actually went this route," he muttered. "That's bold. Stupid, but bold." "Can you trace it?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "And if it's what I think it is, we'll have proof in days, not weeks." He was right. 48 hours later, Harold called me back with a voice sharp as a blade. It was Claire. She tried to bribe a notary to backdate a fake evaluation. "We've got her emails. One of the assistants turned it in voluntarily. Didn't want to go down for fraud." That evening, as the sun dipped low, a county sheriff's vehicle pulled into Daniel's driveway. I wasn't there, but the neighbors were. They saw it all. Claire was still in her yoga clothes when they cuffed her on the front steps, her voice shrill and cracking as she screamed that it was all a mistake. She sobbed, shouted, pleaded, but the officers didn't flinch. The charges: forgery, fraud, attempted abuse of the court. Daniel stood helpless, trying to block the deputies, but one firm hand on his chest pushed him back. His face went pale as reality sank in. The neighborhood watched in silence, their whispers drifting like smoke. Later that night, Lily called me in tears. "Grandma," she whispered, "Mom tried to blame you, but no one believed her, not even Dad." I closed my eyes, clutching the phone tight. "Sweetheart," I told her softly, "some people don't break, they rot. And the rot always shows." For the first time since that cursed dinner, I felt the scales tilt. They wanted me powerless. Instead, they had put the spotlight on their own corruption. And I was only just beginning to use it. Once Claire was charged, the noise in my house finally quieted. For weeks, I had lived with the constant buzz of phone calls, angry texts, and veiled threats. Now, there was only silence. The kind that felt like oxygen after a long storm. But silence doesn't mean inaction. The next morning, I spread the folders across my dining table again. Estate records, loan papers, property deeds. This time I wasn't looking at them like a battlefield. I was looking at them like blueprints. Not for revenge, but for rebuilding. The first step was liquidation. The lake cabin Daniel bragged about on social media was mine by deed. I sold it within a week. The papers signed so quickly, it made his head spin. The downtown condo Mark had been secretly renting for under-the-table cash transferred out of his hands and into the market. Even the SUV Claire loved to parade around in, the one she told her yoga friends was Daniel's hard-earned gift, was repossessed right out of their driveway. I didn't do it to humiliate them. I did it because rot spreads fast if you don't cut it out. When Harold asked me where I wanted the money to go, I gave him a list. Half was to be reinvested into safe accounts under my sole name. The other half was to seed a foundation I had been dreaming about since I found David's letter. I called it the Carter Second Chance Fund, a grant program for single mothers over 60 who had been pushed aside, cut out of decisions, or left scraping by after years of sacrifice. Women like me who had given everything and were told they were nothing. Applications poured in faster than I expected. Some came typed neatly with resumes and records attached. Others arrived as handwritten letters on lined notebook paper. The first one I read was from a woman in Oklahoma. Her children had emptied her savings account the week after her husband's funeral. She ended her letter with one line that pierced me. "I just want to know if someone still sees me." I approved her grant the same day, but not all my rebuilding was public. Some of it was deeply personal. I met Lily, my granddaughter, at the small white house with yellow shutters just outside of town. It was the one David always said reminded him of Grandma's place. I placed the deed in her hands. Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this, Grandma." "Yes, you do," I told her, "because you never pretended, and because you saw me when no one else would." She hugged me tight, and for the first time in years, I felt what family was supposed to feel like. It wasn't revenge I was chasing anymore. It was legacy. A month later, an invitation arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I didn't need one to know who sent it. The handwriting was Daniel's, neat, practiced, as if formality might erase what had already been done. The card read, "Family dinner, let's reset, reset." The word tasted bitter. Still, I went, not to forgive, not to reconcile, but because sometimes the strongest statement you can make is showing up without bowing your head. The evening was staged, plastic smiles, a perfectly arranged table, music humming low in the background to drown out real conversation. Mark stood near the window, fidgeting with his glass. Daniel sat at the head of the table, as if he still ruled it, but even his shoulders slumped with the weight of defeat. Claire wasn't there. Her plea deal required distance from me. That absence spoke louder than anything. I sat down calmly, my hands folded, my pearl earrings glinting under the light. Lily slipped into the chair beside me, her quiet presence steadier than any army. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, families go through storms. We've weathered ours badly, but maybe we can move forward." I set my glass down slowly. The room stilled. "This isn't a storm," I said, my voice low but steady. "It's the consequence, and every one of you wrote it yourselves." You could have heard a pin drop. Mark looked at the floor. Daniel opened his mouth, but I raised a hand, and the words died before they escaped. "You told me I was just the mother, that I should stay quiet. But I wasn't quiet when I worked 3 jobs to keep food on this table. I wasn't quiet when I fought to keep this family together after your father left. And I will not be quiet now that I have taken back everything we built." I rose, my chair scraping softly against the polished floor. "This house, this land, this legacy, it is mine, not because I demanded it, but because I protected it when you only wanted to consume it. You are guests here, remember that." I didn't slam the door on my way out. I didn't need to. Silence followed me like respect finally earned. Outside, the Texas sky stretched wide and endless, the kind of clear evening my brother used to say was perfect for beginnings. As I walked to my car, I felt no anger, no triumph, just a steady peace that settled deep in my bones. The lesson was simple. Blood can betray you, money can corrupt you, but dignity, once you claim it, cannot be stolen. I was not just the mother anymore. I was the foundation. And this time, I was building on my own terms.